Hey, how are we doing out there? I hope, I hope that everybody is not stressing out too badly. I'm talking about this debt ceiling nonsense. And that's exactly what it is, by the way. It's pure nonsense. You know, I tell you quite frankly, this country is getting as depressing as hell. Now, that's not a great way to start off the show, but hey, I'm Bob Gumbs, and this is the Concerned Forum. And yes, this country has gotten as depressing as all hell. Now, of course, if you want somebody to, I don't know, lick your feet and tell you a bunch of damn lies, you know, go down the block somewhere. Don't pay any attention to me, because I'm going to tell you exactly what the hell's going on. And I'm being honest about it. I'm angry with my side of the fence. I'm angry with the Democratic Party, and I tell you why. I don't believe that Joe Biden is too old to run for president again. I don't believe that he's some kind of master family mob crook with Hunter. Okay, that's a lot of Republican and right-wing bullshit. Okay, but sometimes I think that Joe is too nice of a guy. I know Joe Biden. I mean, I don't, hey, buddy, I'm coming to your house for dinner, that kind of thing. When I say I know him, I don't mean know him. But I used to ride the train with him all the time when I was stationed in D.C. And then after we spent some time, when I came out of the Navy and went in the reserve, I worked for the government. I worked at the Smithsonian. And we moved up to Baltimore. And we stayed there for several years. And always we'd be running into him back and forth. And he's a decent guy. He's a damn decent guy. He's not one of these politicians, well, I went to Harvard and I'm over here, I live over there. My daughter goes to school at Vassar. He's not one of those kind of people. He's a cool dude. Which really pains me with what I see going on. My main complaint about Joe Biden is that he treats his opposition too decently, okay? With him, it's politics, it's the American way. We fight hard, we fight like hell in the daytime, and then at night we go out and have some drinks together and everything is cool. But I don't think Joe, he knows what's going on, but I think that, and that happens a lot with people who are basically innately decent people. They, with their eyes, they see what's going on. But that decent streak inside of them refuses to, or he has to really fight that decency inside of him to do what's necessary. And what he has to understand, this is not the Republican Party that he first came to Congress with. This is not the Republican Party of my dad, my mom and dad, okay? This Republican Party is basically a group of ruthless thugs who have co-opted and are using some of the most violent, least educated, least informed people in our democratic republic to essentially destroy the frame of government that we have now, that we've had since, at least since the Civil War. All right, that's what this Republican Party is about. They don't want to be our friends. People need to understand that these are ruthless, vicious people. These are spiteful, hateful people. Okay? And what is really sad, they don't give a good damn about the American public. And when I say that the Republican Party does not give a damn about the American public, and when I say the American public, I am speaking about the average working Americans, okay? Folks like you and me, okay? Irregardless of race, ethnic background, etc. All right? They don't give a damn. They have an idea of the type of country that they want to see take the place of what we have here now. And folks, their vision for America, well, let me put it to you like this. Sweetheart, it ain't a democracy, okay? And if you believe that, then you are totally naive, okay? That's what you have to understand. The best example I can give is that clown that announced his presidential run last night. And quite frankly, that was bullshit, okay? Really what it is, he's running for Führer. You know what Führer means, right? You know, you watch those World War II movies where the Nazi soldiers are saying, "Sie Heil, mein Führer." Well, that's what Ron DeSantis is all about, okay? He believes that he has been chosen by God to tear down our democracy, okay? And they will do anything, which includes forcing women to have babies, irregardless if it's medically or psychologically the best thing for them, and damn what their doctors say, okay? They will gladly start a race war. And you look at DeSantis, that's what he's begging for. Now, I could tell him he might not, what I would tell him that you better be careful what you ask for, all right? Because you might get it. I know that's an old saying, but it's quite true. And see, these are the people that we're dealing with. They don't give a damn about any budget ceiling. They could care less. The stock market crashes, America goes into a Great Depression and drags the rest of the world behind it. They don't give a damn. Because, as I say, they have this idea that they can tear down our form of government, stick a DeSantis or stick a Trump in there, and everything will be just fine. They want a theocratic, Bible-based, in their mind, dictatorship. And, I used to say this kind of stuff back in 2016. Everybody thought I was nuts, right? Oh, Bob, calm down. Everything will be okay. Everybody knows that Trump is a clown, and we'll have President Hillary, and everything will be just fine. Yeah. Want to try again? Folks, you need to wake up. You need to get woke. I mean, look, this Republican Party, they can't run a government. They can't govern. They have proven that time and again. But they feel totally qualified to invent new meanings for what? A new meaning for words. Woke means that you are awake, that you are aware. That's all the hell it ever meant. But they want to attach, oh, that's some kind of liberal signal, okay? That's so that the black and brown and red people can replace white people. And see, that's something else that any American should find disturbing. Because the people who are here, I'm not talking about recent immigrants. The folks who are here, they are already American citizens. Our studio now is down here at 38th Street, okay? We're not that far up from South Ferry, the harbor here in New York. At South Ferry, they have these huge walls, something reminiscent to what you find in D.C., the wall for Vietnam. Well, they got a similar wall here. Here, down at South Ferry, with the names of all the military people who've given their lives for this country. And you look at that wall, and you will see names: Figueroa, Andretti, O'Banion, Kaczynski, Leroy Jackson, Rodriguez. Not names that you would find on the log for the who was on the Mayflower, but they were Americans nonetheless. So what are the Republicans trying to say now? That we're replacing Americans with Americans? What the hell kind of sense does that make? Unless, of course, and see, I'm getting older, just like all of us, all right? And I guess I'm getting, a little crankier. And sometimes I don't watch my language, okay? Hey, I grew up here in the city, spent a lot of time in the military, especially in the Navy. So yeah, I got a mouth on me when I get riled up. I do have a mouth on me, and I'll be quite frank about it. I'm getting damn riled. Because when you look at me, like them punks down there at Charlottesville in 2017, when one of those clowns looks at me and starts crying about, oh, Jewish people are trying to replace us with black and brown. Well, hey, people that look like me have been in this country, here on this East Coast especially, since 1565. The first city in what came to be America was St. Augustine, Florida. And that was composed of black, Spaniards, indigenous people. So what the hell is this nonsense about replace? See, when you say that, you're telling me that I've been here, speaking generally, I've been here for what, going on about 500 years. But you look at me as a replacement. You look at me like I'm the other. So that tells me that you don't see me as an American like yourself. You don't see me as being as good an American as you. No matter how many times my name is on that wall for dying for this country. No matter the fact that people like me gave America its first economy and propelled it into a superpower. Yeah, tobacco, cotton, sugar, rice, and the slave trade itself. The Industrial Revolution. How do you think that happened? Started in England. Where do you think the money for the investment into all those steam engines, how do you think that happened? Uptown, we got Columbia University. Used to be called King's College. That was financed through the slave trade and through the sale of opium. Is that how come Ron DeSantis doesn't want Americans to know the history of this country? And I have some words for my fellow Democrats. Stop worrying about, well, if Trump's the nominee, we can do so-and-so. Or if DeSantis is the, I do like what Trump did to the governor of Florida, though. Ron the Sanctimonious. I think that's wonderful. But don't worry about either one of them. What you have to do, you have to fight this party as a whole. This Republican Party of today is a malignant disease, fatal to the health of a democracy. And that's what we're fighting. We're not fighting Trump. We're not fighting Ron DeSantis. We are fighting an ideal, okay? And that ideal is the same ideal that took the most intelligent, educated, advanced country in the world and took it down the path of death and destruction, okay? And now that same filthy idea with its racism, with its anti-Semitism, with its misogyny, right? Now that idea is working overtime to try to take over America. DeSantis or the Sanctimonious, he is pushing for things that we wound up hanging guys for in Nuremberg at the end of World War II. Book banning. Taking children away from their parents because of the medical decision those parents choose to make. Forcing women to basically carry fetuses to term irregardless of their physical or psychological condition. People, you need to wake up, okay? You really do need to get woke because we are in serious trouble if we don't wake up to the danger that is staring us in the face in this country. Immigration, right? Listen, I have problems with how we have gotten into doing immigration in this country. I had a position for a few months. I was a caseworker for asylum seekers. I didn't like how we did it. It was lousy, quite frankly. And that's because just like we do with so many things now here in this city, instead of the government doing its job, we pass it on to the private sector. There are some things that the private sector is good at, right? The main thing they're good at is making money. That's what they do. That's why this game is called capitalism. But putting it all in the hands of different private companies and what have you, I don't think that's good. All right, I'll go into that maybe on my next show, but I don't think that it's a good idea. I've seen too much. However, we keep forgetting in this country because just like you see with Governor Ron down there in Florida, some people, they really don't want to be to teach, they really don't want to see American history taught. But see, you can't correct your mistakes if you don't know what they are. You can't fix anything that's broken or not working properly if you don't know how it got that way. If the machine is not working properly or if it's broken, don't you need to know what caused the malfunction? Well, that's the purpose of history. And America should never forget, we didn't buy this land. I mean, don't fall for that crap. What was it? The Dutch bought Manhattan for $24. Well, in the first place, they gave the $24 to the people that didn't live here. Okay, they weren't Manhattan Indians; they were from Brooklyn. And being good Brooklynites, they just kept their mouths shut and took the money. Hey, that's history, okay? But when I say we, I'm talking about this, what came to be the United States. We rolled from the Atlantic across the continent to the Pacific, both in the United States and in Canada, okay? The whole North American deal. We took the land, we killed, we burned people out of their homes, and that's just the way it is. We dragged people out of their homes. Andrew Jackson and the Cherokee Trail of Tears took people from the East Coast of Virginia, Florida, Georgia, and basically took them from those states and had the Army march them all the way out to what they call Indian Territory, which is now Oklahoma, because they thought that they could find gold. And then they said, the hell with it, we just want the land. And so they just moved the people out. And they called it the Trail of Tears because that's exactly what it was. Thousands died. But that's how we got the United States. And in the process of that, we took people from Africa, from another continent, and brought them over here to work the land. And the products that as I said, that came from that land, the tobacco we sold in Europe and made a killing. The cotton, the Southerners sold it up to the Northerners, right? They put it in their mills to make cloth, and they sold it to around the world. And we made millions. Not to mention the slave trade itself, right? So, and please, I don't hear this, you have some of these right wingers and these Confederate apologists talking about, oh well, the Africans they sold their people, they sold their own people to the English and the Spanish. Look, man, in the first place, the whole concept of slavery, especially at that time, it was foreign to Africans. Okay, it was more of a thing of indentured servitude. You could be a slave on Monday, something goes down, and by Friday, you're the king or the king of that territory. In other words, there was no racial stigma. Okay, so it's like really talking about what they did in Africa and how they sold their fellow Africans to Europeans. You're talking apples and oranges. That's the first thing. Second thing, we're not talking about Africa. We're talking about the United States. Okay? We're talking about what happened here for 500 years. So don't let anybody twist the subject, right? And I'll tell you something else. I'm not talking about fighting for Black history and social studies, or what have you, to be taught. I'm fighting for everyone's story to be told. We need to know about the Chinese story and how they, especially in the other half of the country, from the Mississippi going west, how they built the railroads. We need to know what the Japanese did for agriculture in places like Washington State and especially California. We also need to know how this country made a gentleman's agreement with Japan to stop the amount of Japanese people from coming to the United States. We need to know that I think it was up until 1940s, it was almost impossible for Chinese to become American citizens. We need to know that. We need to know how the Irish were so brutalized by the English that when they had the chance to come over here in large numbers, they did, because of the fact the English was starving them off their land in the potato famine. We need to know that. We need to know that those folks in Mexico, that governor of Texas is always complaining about, that Texas was stolen from those people, from those very people that he complains about. And that the cause of the Mexican-American War was primarily because the people who we now know as Texans, they insisted upon bringing their slaves into Texas. Because Texas, while it was still under the Mexican rule, was a no slavery zone. And that came up because I think it was the first president of Mexico that kicked the Spanish out was the son of a black slave and an indigenous person. So yeah, Mexico was down on slavery. And that's what sparked off the Mexican-American War. Because Texas won their independence, they were an independent place, and then eventually they went and they were annexed by the United States, and the Southerners felt that, hey, well, what we need to do, we need to take over this turf. And they started a war. And that's how Texas became a part of the United States, as well as California, Arizona, New Mexico, right? We stole the Southwestern Mexico. Don't take my word for it. Read Abraham Lincoln. And someone else, too. A guy named Ulysses S. Grant. You might have heard of him. Something about winning the Civil War for the Union and then becoming a two-term president. And in his memoirs, he talks about that was, I forgot, how did he say it? One of the most evil wars ever fought. But see, people need to know that. Americans need to know that. And we need to stop this lollipop, ice cream candy idea of history, because all that does, it keeps people ignorant. And ignorance is never a good thing. Especially, it's not good for a man, and it's not good for a nation. And see, that's why somebody like Ron DeSantis is not fit to be president of the United States. He's not really fit to be in any public office because he wants to live the lie, and he wants you to live the lie. And living the lie ain't cool, okay? But see, all this is, I hope I'm not chopping it up too much, but I'm just trying to show how all this stuff is tied together. You ask a Republican, ask one of those people. Oh, I just reminded myself, yeah. The Oath Keepers, the guy that was in charge of the Oath Keepers, yeah, he was convicted today, and he got 18 years. Now this cat's in his 50s, so imagine being in your 50s and basically getting a 20-year prison sentence. Hey man, that sucks. And guess what? He deserves it. Should have got 30. Yeah, that's what I said, because this is my country. This is my country, and you're going to accuse me and every black person, every brown person living in the city, you're going to accuse us of stealing the election because your boy lost? So you're going to tear the government, tear us apart? No, hell no. Hell no. And see, it's time for Democrats to start getting mad. And that's another problem. I'm tired of this business about, the corporate Democrats are always mad at the progressives. My question is, why are you going to get mad at somebody that wants progress? I don't see that as being helpful. But I'm not going to go too deep into that. That will be saved when I start going to these Democratic meetings. I live in the Bronx, and it's very hard being a Democrat in the Bronx unless you're in the, you're in the clique. But again, that's another story. But we need to get our stuff together. And we need to tell our constituents that they need to get their stuff together. They need to pay attention to what the hell is going on. Because you see, that's another problem that we have. These so-called Republicans, these so-called conservatives, running around attacking people with baseball bats, attacking people because they're trans. And that's another terrible thing. It's just like the Nazis. They said, okay, we're going to attack the Jews and the Gypsies. Those are going to be the others, right? Now, here in America, if you are brown, you are the other, right? If you are black, well, you've always kind of been the other, see? And I haven't seen this much racism in politics since the 60s. And we were having those huge civil rights battles. I'm thinking maybe we need to go, sometimes you need to go back so that you can go forward. It's the kind of thing where, you're doing your thing, blah, 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 blah. And oh my goodness, I forgot something. and you have to go back and look for it. Or you're driving along on the highway, right? And it used to happen to me a lot, right? Because, you know, guys, we're driving, we're in the car, we're driving. You know, we got the old lady with us, and, oh, Robert, I think you should have turned off at that exit. Baby, be cool. Okay, I got this, right? And you just don't want to admit that you missed the damn exit and you got to go turn around and go back. Well, it's the same thing with this, right? I think we got to walk a little back so that we can go forward. I think too many of us, and I'm talking about black, white, Hispanic, Asian, too many of us who are damn decent people. But what happened, I think we got a little comfortable, especially after Barack got in the White House. But see, we should have smelled something coming when we observed how they treated Barack. Okay? Now, if you want to know, see, I'm switching back to something else again, but it's all related. You want to know about this debt ceiling and the government being forced to default on its bills, which could cause the whole economy to explode in our faces? Well, Obama's a part of that. Yeah. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean. The Republican Party, their decency, right? They threw that coat off, right? Because you had a part in the Republican Party that says, hey, man, we're starting to get our ass kicked. Every time we run for something, we're getting our cans busted, right? We need to change the program and see what the mainstream of Americans want. There was this cat, he was an Indian American gentleman. And when I say Indian American, I'm talking about his parents, his forebears came from India. And he was a conservative, but he wasn't a nutcase. And at the end of the election in, 2012, before the election in 2016, he put out a report for the Republican Party saying, yo, you got to be more open to people. You don't get anywhere kicking people out and slamming doors in people's faces. You know, you have to understand that time goes forward. And you know what the Republican Party did? They ignored him, and their base went for Donald Trump. And what happened? The Republican Party basically had 4 years of embarrassing the hell around the world of the United States. How many of y'all remember Trump when he was president and he went to the UN, right? And he talks about, yeah, they laugh at America. Well, yeah, because you're the president. That's why they were laughing at America. See? And all those tax breaks that he gave to the wealthy and corporations. You know, all that kind of stuff. And what happened, the Republicans couldn't win. They couldn't win jack if you gave it to them on the silver platter. And what happened, let me try and explain this. And I know some people are going to get mad at me, but what the hell? I should be used to that by now, right? But a lot of this has to do with the Southern character, right? What do I mean? Well, originally, the heart and soul of the Republican Party, you know, even when my mom and dad were activists in the Republican Party. The heart of that party was in New England and the upper Midwest. And then, because of the Southern strategy, which Nixon, Pat Buchanan, and a couple of other people started in the mid-60s, right? Remember the Southern strategy, you get white, especially white male Democrats in the South who were angry that between Franklin D. Roosevelt and Jack Kennedy, the Democratic Party took a consequential shift in the whole racial thing, right? Well, why? Well, you had the Great Depression, okay, which taught the American people that a strict market-based capitalistic system with no checks and balances is not a good thing. It doesn't work. And that's what caused the Great Depression. And then you had World War II come along. And then you had Jackie Robinson, who was not the first black man to play Major League Professional Baseball. But what Jackie Robinson actually was, he was the first black man to come and play professional American Major League baseball, after black men had been basically chased out of Major League Baseball in the, what was it, about 1890s. See, a lot of people don't know that. Yeah, blacks were in professional baseball from the beginning, but they were chased out, they were pushed out. Gentlemen's agreements were made among the ball club owners not to let black men play in the professional leagues. And that became solidified in the 1890s, which was really, the 1890s was the heyday for lynching, Jim Crow, etc., right? So, like I say, from the Great Depression and Franklin Delano Roosevelt through World War II, Jackie Robinson, and then the communist threat. See, we went from the Nazis to the communists, which, by the way, as a person of color, I know this is going to freak some people out, but I have to thank them. Why? Because Hitler told America, hey, don't tell me how I treat Jews. I treat Jews the same way you treat blacks in America and Native Americans with the reservations. So don't tell me what to do. And that made many Americans open their eyes, especially Franklin Roosevelt and his wife, Eleanor. And they said, interesting. And then after we disposed of Hitler, our allies, Russia, they became our enemies. And Stalin was Stalin, the commies played our racial problems for like a fiddle, right? Because remember, after World War II and we go into 47, 48, America is really trying to, they're building up democracy in Western Europe, right? The Marshall Plan, where America literally, I mean, not figuratively, literally, rebuilt Western Europe. We rebuilt Germany, stone by stone and brick by brick, right? Germany, France, England. Why did we do that? Because we didn't want the communist influence to take over Western Europe, see? So that's when the former Army Chief of Staff, George Marshall, he came up with the Marshall Plan, right? The communists, they were more interested at that point because they saw that we weren't going to give up on the Western Europe. And they started pumping their propaganda into Asia, Korea, Vietnam, and Africa. See? Now, I give the credit to Roosevelt all the way up to LBJ, right? But I left out someone, which I shouldn't, Eisenhower, that guy that won World War II in the European theater, and who became a two-term Republican president, right? He got hip to what the communists were doing. And he said, you know, when we go around the world trying to sell democracy, it doesn't look good when people see, you know, television, movies, and what have you in newsreels, and they see colored-only signs and white-only signs. And Roosevelt and then Truman started the ball rolling, and Eisenhower, he, in his own way, he picked up the ball, and he kept running with it. And the reason for that was from Eisenhower to Kennedy, and even Nixon a little bit, because remember, now Nixon was Eisenhower's vice president in the 50s, and the State Department, which, by the way, this is where I learned a lot of this stuff, when I was an intel tech, when I was in the Navy, and I was stationed at the White House and the Pentagon, and I had to go take a course in counter espionage. And we were taught by an old CIA hand and an old State Department hand. And that's what happened with civil rights. It became a matter of the national interest to end racial segregation. And see, I think even to today, a lot of people, you know, just like an idiot like DeSantis, God, how the hell did he become a naval officer? Well, he was a naval officer, but he was a lawyer in the Navy. So that's a little, yeah, same uniform, but it's a little bit different, okay? He's what you call a staff officer, all right? Which means that he's not a command authority, okay? His specialty is not in dealing with personnel, with people, okay? He's there for a specialty, and his specialty supposedly was law. But anyway, that's why these people now, that they talk about, oh, well, you know, these diversity programs and equal, they don't get it, okay? Some just don't want to get it. But I think most people are really ignorant of the fact. They really don't understand what happened in this country in the 50s and 60s. At that time, we felt that we were in a life and death struggle with the communists. And the communists were using America's bad racial history as a huge propaganda weapon in Africa, in Asia, right? After after 59,000 dead Americans in Vietnam, you would think that people here would have finally gotten the message, right? Racism in any form is not good for the United States. It's not good for us domestically. It's not good for our foreign policy. But hey, like I said, the Republicans, their thing nowadays is going backwards as far as they can, as fast as they can. But see, that's how all this stuff really started. Because the communists, right, they used to go to Kenya. They used to go to Nigeria. They used to go to Niger, all over Africa. The Russians would go. And they would have the newsreels about, oh, well, hey, look, Martin Luther King, watch, he's leading a demonstration so that black children can use the public library. Oh, look at that big German Shepherd, that big police dog. Take a bite out of that 15-year-old black kid just because he wanted to go to the library and read a book. And the African nations, they saw this, which is one of the reasons why today there's kind of a chilly thing with a lot of the African nations. And they're telling us, hey, and they're telling the Africans, hey, listen, don't mess with those people. They're not your friends. And the Africans turn around and say, look, we're not going to tell America how to run her shop, but don't tell us not to be friendly with Russia. You see that now with this Ukrainian war going on. Because, see, people remember things, right? And that's the main reason, to be honest about it, why civil rights was so important in the 50s and 60s. Because we're trying to tell the world that we are the upholders of democracy, while at the same token, our civil rights leaders are getting their heads blown off, right? Kids are being bit up by police dogs because they want to use the library. Not a good image. And see, what happens is that a lot of white Democrats in the South, they wanted things to stay the way they were. And so when they saw that the National Democratic Party wasn't going for that anymore, they said, well, hey, I'm going to join the Republican Party. And slowly but surely, that's how the Republican Party became what it is today. That's why it was easy for a guy like Donald Trump to basically go in and take it over. So what we are fighting now, we are fighting the second, or how you want to say it, civil rights struggle 2.0 or 2.1, and that's why. Listen, I know I went into a couple of different, different subjects, but I hope you can see how they're all related, okay? I'm going to always try to put in some history, some background, so that the things that you see happening today, you will have some kind of connection with to understand the whys, the hows, and the wherefores. And see, that's the importance of studying history, so that you don't make the same stupid mistakes, right, that you made before. And you kind of learn a little better how to avoid those pitfalls. The Democratic Party needs to be true to itself. They need to guide America. They need to talk to Americans much more than they're doing now. Because right now, and I'm not trying to be funny, the Democrats are the ones that are on the sides, that are on the side of the angels. Are they perfect? Hell no. Do they make mistakes? Hell yeah. But they stand for the democracy. And right now we have two major parties. One is basically a fascist cult. That's the Republican Party. The other is more or less a mainstream American party that says all Americans should have a chance to play, okay? Immigration should be worked out intelligently and humanely, and also with the memory that everybody here, except for the Native Americans, the indigenous people, everybody else is an immigrant, okay? And the indigenous people they themselves were immigrants, but see, they got here first when no one else was here. Okay? And that's history. So listen, I hope you enjoyed what I had to say. I hope it was a little enlightening. And I'll see you again next week. Same time, same place, same channel. Be well, stay blessed. And I'm Bob Gumbs, and this is the Concerned Forum. Take care.